Moremi ajanṣọ́rò ewúrẹ́ ò fún mi màmá gbà o. Moremi ajanṣọ́rò aṣọ ò fún mi màmá gbà o. Moremi ajanṣọ́rò. A very long time ago, in the ancient town of Ile-Ife, where people of wisdom, great and small, young and old, lived peacefully, there lived a very beautiful damsel whose name was Moremi. Not only was Moremi very beautiful, she was also very intelligent and had good character. So much so that all the men in her town, including already married men, wished she was theirs. The town of Ile-Ife was very peaceful in those days. Everybody went about their various vocations and businesses. Hunters, farmers, housewives. The town was very peaceful, except for one thing. Occasionally, there were strange creatures that would come to this town, attack the people, and capture some to be their slaves. This made the people of Ile-Ife live in constant fear for their lives. Until one day, Moremi decided that she could no longer let her people live like this. So, she devised a plan that was to change her life forever. And so it was that one fateful day, these strange creatures came as they occasionally did. Moremi allowed herself to be captured by these strange creatures, and by nightfall, they had reached the neighboring town. Almost immediately after the king of that town set eyes on Moremi, he fell helplessly in love with her and quickly made her his new queen. Over time, the king became so charmed by her beauty that he began to reveal the tricks and secrets behind these strange creatures that attacked Ile-Ife. It was then she understood that they were human beings who wore dry grasses to make them look scary. Moremi planned her escape and succeeded. And when she got to her hometown, she told her people all she had learned, so that when these strange creatures came again, the people of Ile-Ife were ready with their torches of fire, and these so-called strange creatures fled. This was how Moremi delivered her people from these strange attacks. And till date, the people of Ile-Ife still remember Moremi for this heroic act. The end. Once upon a time, in the animal kingdom, the animals lived in a community just as we humans do. Monkeys, squirrels, rabbits, mice, cats, tortoises, all lived in the same community. They also had a market square where they all go to display their wares. Some of the prominent traders in the market were Ijapa, the tortoise, Okere, the squirrel, and Asi, the mouse. In those days, Tortoise used to have a normal-sized nose, and he was known in the market for selling calabash and breakable plates known as awo. Okere sold nuts, while Asi sold fruits. One day, suddenly, a loud squeal was heard, and when everyone turned to see what was happening, it was Asi and Okere. They had started a fight. Nobody knew what had caused the fight between these two, but the fight was fierce. While some of the animals around were trying to see how amicably they could settle this fight between Asi and Okere, Ijapa decided he was going to settle this fight his own way. Actually, it is noteworthy to know that before this fight, Okere happened to be a very good friend of Ijapa. And on this day, Asin had accused Okere of stealing something from him. An accusation Okere angrily denied, which resulted in a fight. Now, Ijapa's method of pacifying turned out to be wrong because he was quite aggressive and he was trying to defend his friend Okere in the fight instead of judging the matter rightly. And so he got caught between them and Asin angrily bit off his nose. The bite was so hard and painful that Ijapa began to cry and sing. Asin Okere, àwọn lọ́jọ́ ń jà. Asẹ́bùnmi ni mo jẹ, ìjàre mo wá là, àwọn mi ń bẹ lọ́jà. Asẹ́bùnmi ni mo jẹ, ẹ̀gbà mi lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀, ìjàre mo wá là. Asẹ́bùnmi ni mo jẹ, jó mi jó. This was how the tortoise sang his song, explaining to all who cared to listen that Asin the mouse had bitten off his nose despite his good intentions to pacify. That was how the tortoise got his short nose in its present state. The end. Once upon a time, Ireti and Bewaji were very good friends. One day, Bewaji asked her bosom friend to give her one of her baskets, explaining that she needed the basket to guard her growing palm tree from bending to the ground. Ireti gave Bewaji an old basket she was no longer using, and she used it to guard her palm tree. Meanwhile, Ireti had a daughter who became very ill one day. Her daughter was so ill that she consulted an herbalist who told her that for her daughter to live, she would have to get a special necklace made of coral beads to wear around her neck. She is to wear it around her neck for life, otherwise she would die. Ireti didn't have this type of necklace that the herbalist described. However, she knew that her friend Bewaji would have it. So she went to her friend. After Bewaji heard all that had happened, she was moved with sympathy for her dear friend, and so she decided to give her the necklace she requested for her daughter's health and long life. Ireti was so glad and grateful to her friend for this kind gesture. And so it was that over the years, Bewaji and Ireti's friendship continued to blossom. Ireti's daughter grew older and older, even as Bewaji's palm tree continued to grow taller and bigger. Until one day, when Ireti, upon a visit to Bewaji's house, saw the palm tree her friend had guarded with her own basket some years back. The palm tree had blossomed, and it now had so much fruit on it that Ireti became very envious of her dear friend. On seeing Bewaji, Ireti demanded that she return her basket to her with the excuse that she needed her basket for some urgent work. Bewaji was greatly surprised by her friend's request, and she tried to explain that the basket will be damaged if she tries to retrieve it, because this means that she will have to cut the basket to remove it from the tree. "Otio, you won't have to cut it," shouted Ireti. You'll just have to cut down the palm tree instead of my basket, because you have to return my basket in the same condition I gave it to you. Bewaji became very sad. This is a tree she had come to love, and now she had to cut it down because her friend had asked for her basket. So sad indeed. But then she cut it down and returned the basket to Ireti. After this, the friendship between Ireti and Bewaji became sour. Some months later, Bewaji caught wind of the news that Ireti's daughter was going to get married soon. So Ireti's daughter is going to get married soon. The other day she had collected her basket, Abi. Now it's my turn to collect my coral beads too, she thought. And so it was that on the day of Ireti's daughter's wedding, Bewaji went to Ireti to demand the return of her coral necklace. Knowing fully well the implication of removing the bead from her daughter's neck, Ireti became very sad. Whoa, I am not here to dilly-dally with you. Just go and remove the bead right now from your daughter's neck and give it back to me, shouted Bewaji. Ireti went on her knees. She wept and begged and begged. But her pleas fell on deaf ears as Bewaji was bent on taking revenge. Alas, Ireti had to remove the coral beads from her daughter's neck, to the amazement of everyone present at the wedding. No sooner had she removed it than her daughter slumped and died. Oh, what a great loss. The end. A very long time ago, when animals and humans spoke the same language, a king announced to all his subjects who were assembled in his palace what the oracle had made known. For the famine to come to an end, they'll have to get the tusk of an elephant, and whosoever brings this tusk will be given up to half of the kingdom. Nobody, not even the bravest of warriors in the kingdom, stepped forward, except for one. Guess who? Ijakpa, the tortoise. Everybody was surprised. Most of all, the king. You? Ijakpa? Of all people. Kábíyèsí o. Live long, O king, tortoise hailed. Yes, I, Ijakpa, will not only bring the tusk of the elephant, but the elephant itself, he boasted. But then Tortoise made sure to tell the king two things that must have been done upon his arrival. One, a very big hole dug with mats laid on it, as this would be a trap for the elephant to fall into later on. 2, upon seeing him with the elephant, everyone should start to sing and dance. With his plan in place, Ijakpa, the tortoise, set out on his quest to get Erin the elephant to town. As soon as Ijakpa saw Erin the elephant, he exclaimed, "Ah, my friend, here you are, when everyone awaits you in the palace." The elephant wondered, "What for?" Ijakpa replied him and said, The humans have finally realized your worth as the king of the animals instead of lion. On hearing this, the elephant got excited and became very happy because he had always thought that he should have been considered the king of the animals because of his size. And so he was ready to follow Tortoise to town. Just then, a bird who knew of Tortoise's cunning plan to lure the elephant to his death started singing. Erin wọ́n ní kí o wá jọba. Erin yẹ́yẹ́, erin yẹ́yẹ́. Ìwòyí ọ̀la rẹ̀. Erin yẹ́yẹ́, erin yẹ́yẹ́. Ẹ̀jẹ̀ á máa ṣe bàlà. Erin yẹ́yẹ́, erin yẹ́yẹ́. Eṣinṣin á máa ṣe yùngbà. Erin yẹ́yẹ́, erin yẹ́yẹ́. Wọ́n ní kí o wá jọba. Erin yẹ́yẹ́, erin yẹ́yẹ́. Kárẹ̀rẹ̀ o wá jọba. Erin yẹ́yẹ́, erin yẹ́yẹ́. Erin, the elephant, stopped in his tracks and asked Ijapa if he understood what the bird was singing about. Ijapa pretended not to know what the bird implied because he was going to ruin his plan. So he said, "Of course, the bird is trying to tell you the usual that will happen at your coronation ceremony tomorrow. You know, flies will dance around the palm wine gods, and of course, the blood of fowls that will be slaughtered will flow." Then he started singing. I'm marrying Jaba. I'm marrying Jaba. Ito dadi o ẹkún ẹwẹlẹ. Ito tọpa ìlẹ̀kẹ̀. I'm marrying Jaba. I'm marrying Jaba. Ẹkún ẹwẹlẹ. This was how the tortoise hypocritically praised the elephant till they got to town. On sighting the tortoise and the elephant from afar, everybody started singing and dancing in spite of their fright on seeing the enormous animal. The elephant, unaware of the pit that has been dug for him, just walked majestically to the mat that was laid for him. And as he walked over, wow, that was how he fell into the pit. The end. Once upon a time, the cockerel and the fox were very good friends. They went everywhere together and did many things in common. But one day, the cockerel noticed that although they were good friends, the fox would always move away from him anytime he tried to get close. So he decided to ask the fox why he was always acting that way. "Ha, cockerel, my friend," the fox said. "That fire you carry on your head is what I'm always afraid of." On hearing this, the cockerel began to laugh. He laughed so hard that the fox began to wonder what the matter could be and how what he had said could be funny. So when he asked why the cockerel laughed, the cockerel told him that what he thought was fire was actually his head lobe. "And that's like flesh, the color of red," the cock exclaimed. "What?" The fox was very surprised to find out, and so he thought to himself, "So it was meat I'd been afraid of all these days." The cock, unaware of what his so-called friend was thinking, was still laughing when suddenly the fox pounced on him and ate him. The end. Long time ago, in a small village in the Yoruba kingdom, there lived a man and his wife, Olurombi. Olurombi and her husband had been married for some time now without any child of their own. Some of the villagers mocked her. Some even gossiped about her because of her childlessness. This made Olurombi very sad that she would always cry her eyes out. Why can't I have a child of my own like the others? She sometimes wondered. So sad was Olurombi that one day she went to ask for a child from an Iroko tree. She vowed to give that child to the Iroko tree if she could have one. Her wish was granted, and 9 months later, Olurombi gave birth to a very beautiful girl. By this time, Olurombi had forgotten all about the vow she had made. Many days, weeks, months, and years passed by, and Olurombi's daughter, Kikelomo, had grown to be a very beautiful damsel. Olurombi still had not paid her vow, but one day, the Iroko tree showed up and demanded payment of Olurombi's vow. Her beautiful daughter, Kikelomo. Olurombi begged and begged for the Iroko tree to let go, but the Iroko tree will have none of it. And so, her daughter was lost to the Iroko tree. Oníkálukú jẹ́jẹ́ ewúrẹ́, ewúrẹ́, ewúrẹ́. Oníkálukú jẹ́jẹ́ àgùntàn, àgùntàn bọ́lọ́jọ́. Olúrónbí jẹ́jẹ́ ọmọ rẹ̀ apọ́n bí epo. Olúrónbí yóò join, Iroko join. The end. Tales, fables, and sounds of the Nigerian stories. Àrọ́bá ní bàbá ìtàn. Ọmọdé ò bá tàn, á bá àrọ́bá. Nigerian Folktales. Once upon a time, when animals and humans communed directly with the Creator, also known as Eledumare Adeda Asheda in the Yoruba language. They had very close link with God such that they had speedy answers to their requests. Both animals and humans were able to fellowship with God regularly. One day, an animal called Gorilla, who had always been in hiding, thought because of his ugly look, he was not to be seen by all, especially humans. So, he wanted God to change his status from being an animal to being a human. This was because the humans, in his opinion, were able to do many amazing things, such as walk on two legs, do many wonders with their hands, and having the ability to talk clearly with one another. More so because the humans all looked beautiful with their smooth faces and all. And so it was that on one of the occasions he was opportuned to present his requests before God, he made a specific request to be turned into a human being. We all know that God Almighty, the Creator, all-powerful, all-knowing, and there is nothing he can't do. Therefore, the gorilla's request was no big deal to him. Nevertheless, God warned the gorilla that the ways of the humans were unpredictable and that their minds are wicked and full of evil. But the gorilla insisted on becoming a human being. And so, the creator agreed to grant the gorilla's request on one condition: that he will have to wait for 7 days, during which he will be gradually transformed into a human. Gorilla was extremely excited and he promised to wait patiently for 7 days. So he went to his home happily. On the first day, he waited happily. On the second day, yes, he waited patiently. The third, fourth, up till the 5th day, Gorilla waited patiently in hope of his transformation. But on the 6th day, something happened. The 6th day in the world of the humans happened to be a day of merriment, visitations, and celebration. This day happened to be what we now know as weekend today. And so, the gorilla became tempted. He was very impressed by the dancing and partying that he wanted to become a part of it. In no time, he jumped out into the midst of the humans. Then he started singing. Madeninho, 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 ni oyola o Madeninho, 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 ni oyola o Madeninho, 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 iruten wo ni di mi ni oyola Madeninho, Madeninho, ni siru ni di mi mo we, Madeninho, Madeninho. Kẹ́lẹ́ tẹ́ ń sọ ní wòyí ọ̀la Madeninho, Madeninho, tó bá di lọ́la máa sọ̀rọ̀ káṣá o Madeninho, Madeninho, irun tẹ́ ń wò lára mi ní wòyí ọ̀la Madeninho, Madeninho, kò ní sírun lára mi mọ́ òwe Madeninho, 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 ní wòyí ọ̀la o Madeninho, 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 ni woyi ọ̀la o Madeninho, Madeninho, Madeninho. The humans were very terrified because they had never seen the gorilla before. They thought it was an evil spirit, and so they all ran away in fear. When everywhere suddenly became quiet and the area empty, that was when the gorilla remembered the condition he was given by the creator. And this was just the 6th day. Just one more day to go. He realized he had disobeyed God. Up until the 6th day, he had been transforming gradually and would have completely transformed into being fully human on the 7th day. But because he was in a haste, this could no longer be. And so, out of shame, he ran into the forest to continue to live as an animal till this day. This is why, although the gorilla remained an animal, he still has some semblance to that of human beings. The end. Once upon a time, there lived a great king who was very wealthy. He had many children and had a kingdom that was far greater than that of any other king in his time. He was also very handsome and good looking, but he lacked good manners. This king was very wicked and proud. King Adenikoko's bad attitude notwithstanding, he would always attend the church service every Sunday. One day, just as the choristers were rendering their special song in the service, the king noticed a particular chorus was most melodious. And although it was a very melodious chorus, he couldn't tell the meaning as it was sung in a foreign language. And so he asked to know the meaning of the chorus that was sung. Someone translated it for him, saying,
"He removed the high and mighty from his throne, and he raised the poor."
On hearing this, King Adenikoko became very angry. His eyes became very red with anger, even as he broke out in sweat. He turned to the other person sitting next to him and said,
"Remind me by the end of this service to teach these fools wisdom. No wonder they have been singing in a foreign language all this while, when in fact they have been insulting me. All over this land, who doesn't know how great and powerful I am? Even kings know me. The Bales give honor to me. God has his throne in heaven, and I've got mine on earth. I can't possibly remove him from his throne, and I'm very sure he can't remove me from mine."
This was how the proud king bragged about his kingship, forgetting the power of his creator. But God saw his attitude and heard his words. He laughed and said to the angel before him,
"Did you hear what this foolish king is saying? He has forgotten his creator in spite of all I have done for him. There is no day that I don't get to see this foolishness from these beings whom I have created, but I have mercy on them and do not punish them as much as I should because I created them. They seem to always forget that there is nothing I can't do. This king has just spoken foolishly, and I should take his life right away so that he should cease to exist. But I won't do that. No, not now."
And so God instructed his angel to go and take Adenikoko's place as king and demote him to the position of his servant until he learns his lesson and repents. Right away, the angel did as he was instructed. Almost immediately after King Adenikoko finished making his threats, he fell into a deep sleep right there in the church. This was the doing of the angel as he transformed the foolish king into a raggedy looking person, and he himself was transformed into the image of the same king. He moved the now raggedy looking person to another place and maintained his position as the king so that no one knew what was happening. In fact, it wasn't as if anything happened anyway. Meanwhile, Adenikoko, the former king, was still soundly asleep when these events was taking place. The church service soon ended and everyone, including this new king, left the church and went to their respective homes, and the church gatekeeper locked the door of the church. Adenikoko woke up later in the middle of the night to find himself surrounded by total darkness. He groped around for a while, bumping into furniture here and there, till he somehow fumbled his way to the entrance door of the church. Then he started banging on the door even as he was yelling on top of his lungs for someone to open up for him to come out. When the gatekeeper heard the noise, he rushed to open the door to see what the noise was about. And when he did, what he saw greatly shocked him. He saw a raggedy looking person who really looked like he was mad, and so he took to his heels. This came as a surprise to Adenikoko because he didn't understand what was happening. Nevertheless, he went his way to the palace. On getting to the palace, he knocked on the gate and ordered the servants at the gate to open up for him. The servants replied and asked who was talking. Then he answered them and told them he was the king. When the servants heard what he said, they burst out in laughter. They made jest of him so much that this man got very angry.
Who do you think you are talking to in that manner? I will surely deal with you all.
After some minutes of back and forth conversations, one of the male servants decided to open the gate to have a look at the person who has been making them laugh so hard. But he shut the door almost as soon as he opened it.
Madman is at the gate.
So this was how the former king, Adenikoko, slept outside the palace till the next morning. The next morning, Adenikoko entered the palace. But because the palace guards had thought he must be a madman, judging from his looks, they arrested him and took him straight away to the king. When the king saw him, he took pity on him and ordered his servants to clothe him, telling them that he wasn't mad and that he was simply a jester. That was how he became the royal jester as he lived in the servants' quarters at the palace from that day. Adenikoko, still in even more confusion, began to wonder.
Wait a minute. Am I dreaming? I think I must be dreaming. Oh. All these can't be real. Just yesterday I was the king, and today I am a jester? I'm confused.
A full year later, it dawned on Adenikoko that this is now his reality. Soon he realized where he had missed it. He understood the sin he had committed, and a great fear of God came upon him. This day he remembered was on a Saturday, and so very early the next morning, which was on Sunday, he went straight away to the church. He was the first to get into the church that morning, so he knelt down, he prayed and asked for forgiveness from God. During the church service, when it was time for the choristers to render their special song, Adenikoko listened very carefully to hear again the part of the song where they will sing the chorus that was translated for him the other day.
He removed the high and mighty from his throne, and he raised the poor.
As soon as the choristers started singing the chorus, he shouted on top of his lungs. He shouted so loud that everybody in the church laughed so hard, but it didn't bother him, for he thought to himself,
I understand the situation of things now. I don't mind you all laughing at me. I might look stupid now before you all, but I shall be pardoned and raised up by tomorrow.
Soon after the church service ended and everyone went to their various homes. When everybody had left, Adenikoko went to humble himself before the altar and prayed fervently with his whole heart to God. After this, he left. No sooner had he gotten home than the king sent for him. And when he presented himself before the king ordered all his subjects to leave them alone, which they all did. After they were left alone, the king got up from his throne, locked up all the windows and doors of the room, and the entire room was in total darkness. Soon, the sound of footsteps were heard as of 1,000 footsteps, and the room began to shake. Suddenly, there was a great calm and everywhere became quiet. Then the room brightened with great light, so that when Adenikoko lifted up his face to see, the king was transformed into an angel. Adenikoko became greatly afraid, but the angel comforted him and explained everything to him. Afterwards, Adenikoko was pardoned and restored to his position as king. Now, King Adenikoko greatly feared God and repented of all his past deeds. This was how the once proud king became a great and wise king. The end.
My Nigerian Folktales.
Alasheju, Baba Ashite. If you are from the Yoruba tribe in Nigeria, you would easily understand this phrase. It's somewhat cumbersome to interpret it exactly as it is in English because of the richness of the Yoruba language. In the Nigerian broken English known as Pidgin, however, Asheju could easily be translated as overdo, oversabi, or I too know. But for some of you who probably would still not understand and would rather be explained to in proper English, Asheju could be explained as overzealousness or excessiveness. Now, Alasheju is a person who's been described as doing all I have tried to explain earlier, okay? So you may try to interpret the phrase Alasheju Baba Ashite if you can in English. I mean, I tried, but couldn't quite wrap my head around it. But maybe this short story I'm about to tell you will somehow explain it anyhow. Once, a young man inherited a fortune after his father's death. This man used all the money he got to buy beautiful but fragile breakable wares. Mirrors, plates, jugs, cups, souvenirs, and so on. He bought all these so he could do the business of selling. One morning, he arranged all his wares in front of his shop. After arranging them, he stepped back and stared at his wares. He became so happy that he began to think aloud.
All these wares I've got is no small fortune, no. Definitely, once I sell all these, I will get double the amount I had bought them. I'm absolutely certain that if I reinvest this profit, I'll have triple my profits. Besides, if I continue to reinvest and increase my profits in this way, soon I'll be rich. But even at that, I won't stop working or investing. No. I won't stop until I become extremely rich, and then everyone around me will recognize me. They will honor and respect me so much. Even at that, I'll continue to invest my money so that I can become extremely rich and wealthy. I'll become so wealthy and I'll gain so much affluence in this whole town such that whatever I say is final. Nevertheless, even with all my wealth and affluence, I shall continue to do business, and by now I would have had millions upon millions of money and have a very wonderful lifestyle. Buy clothes, eat anything anyhow, go to parties. I'll become the talk of town. After all has been said and done, and the entire community now see and recognize me as a well-established businessman, I'll relax a little in order to find myself a wife to marry. But whose daughter will I marry? Oh? Yes, I'll marry the king's daughter. Once we get married and start living together in the house that I've built with my own money, I will move around with an attitude of pride. After all, she's my wife, and I married her with my money. Being a princess notwithstanding, at least I don't beg food to eat from the palace. By the way, sometimes she would cook for me, and I will refuse to eat her food. I'm very sure she won't be happy about this, so she will send for her mother, the Olori, to come and plead with me. And when they will both kneel down in front of me, I will pretend not to see them. This attitude of mine will really hurt my wife now, therefore she will hold on to my feet and beg me, saying,
Please now, Olowo orí mi, ọkọ mi, look at me. You know I love you very much, and I won't let you go hungry intentionally. Due to circumstances beyond my control, I couldn't get your food prepared on time. I beg you to consider my mother, who's right now pleading with you on her knees because of me. I promise not to repeat my offense, so.
I will definitely feel sorry for her, but I'll still want to make a show of my wealth, and so I'll kick her like
This
this.
young man had forgotten himself completely while he was saying all this. So he kicked all the breakable wares in front of him, and all he had bought with the little fortune he inherited was broken into pieces. This man is the personality of whom you can describe as Alasheju. The end.
My Nigerian Folktales.
Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, a royal family was finally blessed with an heir to the throne after many years of waiting. But a soothsayer had given them a warning before the birth of the child that there should be no naming ceremony and that no one should know the name of the prince until he shall come of age. This was so as to preserve the life of the prince. The prince grew into a handsome young man, and all the maidens in the kingdom admired him and wished they could become his bride. Now that he had come of age, the king decided that it was time for him to get his bride. So the king gave the order that it should be announced in the entire kingdom that in 7 days' time there shall be a contest at the palace for the maidens of the kingdom, and whosoever among the maidens would know the name of the prince would become his bride. This was an impossible task, as nobody had ever heard the name of the prince in the entire kingdom since he was born. Now, at this time, there was a beautiful orphan girl who was not regarded by most people in the kingdom. She was wandering through the woods one day when a strange bird appeared to her. Then the bird started to sing.
Amanika buminika kan kemi yo sari kakare ibala jabi agogo shomu kere ibaru male terem.
This was how the orphan girl Temidire got to know the names of the prince. Then came the day they had all been waiting for at the palace. All the maidens of the kingdom were there, dressed in their most beautiful dresses just to catch the eyes of the handsome prince. The competition began. All the girls suggested different names, but none was able to tell the name of the handsome prince. The king was on the verge of losing all hope when Temidire, who was last in line, stepped forward. Kábíyèsí o, live long, O king. Kádé pẹ́ lórí, kí bàtà pẹ́ lẹ́sẹ̀, kí rùkẹ̀rẹ̀ pẹ́ lọ́wọ́, kẹ́mi ọba ogun kọrin kése o. Kábíyèsí o, she hailed. And as she was about to hail the king for the third time, the king shouted at her.
Don't you have anything to say?
And just then, she remembered the strange bird's song.
Amanika buminika kan kemi yo sari kakare ibala jabi agogo shomu kere ibaru male terem.
This was how she was able to tell the king the names of the prince to the amazement of everyone present at the palace. So, Temidire and Prince Igbalajobi got married and they lived happily ever after. The end. Once upon a time, there was a boy who lived in a village. I'll call him Malomo. His mother was a tie and dye textile maker and his father a farmer. Malomo loved to play the flute a whole lot, and he took the flute virtually everywhere he went, even when he followed his parents to the farm. One day, after a hard day's work at the farm, Malomo's father gave him so much to carry that he forgot his flute. On getting home, Malomo noticed that his flute was missing, and so he decided he was going back to the farm that evening to get his flute. On hearing this, his mother pleaded with him not to go to the farm by that time of the day, explaining that the wild beasts from the forest would have invaded the farm. Malomo pretended to have heard what his mother had told him, but as soon as his parents had gone inside, Malomo went ahead in the direction of the farm, determined to get his flute that night. On getting to the farm, true to his mother's words, the wild beasts were already having their meeting on the farm. He saw his flute where he had left it on the farm, but by the time he reached where the flute was, he was surrounded by the wild animals. He became afraid, and now being their prisoner, the lion, king of the animals, ordered him to play the flute. And so he started playing. Fèrè fèrè gbé sóko, ọmọdé náà á gbé sóko láì mú fèrè bọ̀. Fèrè fèrè gbé sóko, ọmọdé náà á gbé sóko láì mú fèrè bọ̀. Fèrè fèrè gbé sóko, ọmọdé náà á gbé sóko láì mú fèrè bọ̀. No sooner had he played the flute than the animals began to dance. They danced and danced till they became carefree. By this time, Malomo had made his escape and had started running away. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him till he got back to the village. On sighting him from afar, his mother knew the animals would still be on his heels, so she called some of the villagers for help in rescuing her son. And as the animals came closer, they poured hot dye on the ones that were closest. As soon as the boy had gotten to the outskirts of the village, most of the animals had turned back. That was how the flute boy was rescued. But some of the animals did not escape the marks made on them by Malomo's mother. Animals like the leopard, the cheetah, and the tiger. They still have those marks till date. The end. A very long time ago, in a small village in the Benin Kingdom, there was a damsel by the name Nene who lived with her mother Iyenoma and her sister Ekpofi. One day, the Enogie from a neighboring village sent a marriage proposal for Nene, which was accepted by her family. And so, the marriage rites were conducted according to the Benin customs and traditions, after which the Enogie, that is the king of the neighboring village, and his procession returned to where they came from. After some days, it was now time for Nene, the new bride, to go to her husband's village. But before Nene could embark on this journey, her mother dressed her up very beautifully made up her face well and adorned her with very beautiful and valuable jewelries. Iyenoma also gave Nene some instructions and a strict warning never to go anywhere else on the way, and that she was not to have any contact with the water from a particular river on the path through which they would journey. And so she embarked on this journey, escorted by her sister Ekpofi and her friend Igbo. On their way to Nene's husband's village, Igbo called Nene aside and told her that she didn't look beautiful enough as a bride.
Is this how you are going to look to your husband's house? You are looking really ugly with this makeup of yours. See your face.
Igbo told her. So Igbo suggested that they go to a nearby river, the same river Nene's mother had warned her about, to wash her face. Unfortunately, Nene had forgotten all her mother's warning about that river. So she thought about what her friend said and agreed to go and wash her face in hope that she would look beautiful after doing so. While Ekpofi waited for them, they went to the river. On getting to the river, Igbo instructed Nene to pull off all her dress and jewelry, which she did accordingly. But just as Nene was about bending low to scoop some water to wash her face, Igbo pushed her into the river, then wore all her dress and jewelry and returned to the roadside where Nene's sister awaited their return. When Ekpofi asked about Nene's whereabouts, Igbo lied to her and told her that Nene had fallen into the river. Ekpofi exclaimed and broke down in tears and wept bitterly. But Igbo silenced her and sternly warned her to stop crying as they must continue on their journey. More so, she was not to tell anyone about what had happened, and from that moment onward, she was to be considered the bride instead of Nene. At the palace, just as Igbo was entering, the king saw her and wondered that she was not in any way looking like the damsel he had married. But he couldn't reject her because a king must not reject a bride so presented to him according to the laws of the land. Now the queen in the palace, Igbo turned Nene's sister Ekpofi to her slave who was to run all her errands. So Ekpofi would go and fetch water from the river every day. And anytime she went, she would sing this sad song.
Ine no di nene re ne de igbon iye me o iye el ya o iye.
As soon as she finished singing, Nene would swim out of the river in her mermaid form. She would play with her and console her because she knew the hardship she was going through. But then, Nene told her sister not to come and see her again because in a few days' time she would be fully transformed into a fish and the river would finally become her kingdom. Nevertheless, Ekpofi still went to the river the next day and the day after that, and on both days, Nene told her the same things she had told her before. And so it was that the following day, Ekpofi could no longer bear the burden of keeping the secret of what had happened to her sister anymore. So she went to the king and told him everything that had transpired. How Igbo had pushed Nene into the river, how she had worn her dress and jewelries, how she had threatened to kill her if she disclosed what had transpired, and how she had finally declared herself the bride instead of Nene. After the king had heard all that was told, he was greatly surprised and angry at the same time. But then he proceeded on a plan to rescue his real bride. The following day, the king, the priests, and the villagers all followed Ekpofi to the river. There, the king ordered her to sing again. And so she sang.
Re-o, re-o, re-o. Ine no di nene re ne de igbon iye me o iye el ya o iye.
And to the amazement of everyone around except Ekpofi, a beautiful mermaid swam out. Only that this time, she was not aware that the whole village was present. She was about to scold her sister for coming again when she realized that they were not alone. But before she could swim back,
Too late.
she was captured and taken back to the village, where she was later to be made the bride and queen. When they all got back to the village, some appeasements were made for her, while fire was put around her to completely remove the river's water from her body. Soon she became fully human again and restored to herself. After Nene was restored, she requested to see her friend Igbo, who was about to escape because she already knew that her evil deed had been exposed. She was brought before the king and the queen, and the king pronounced a judgment on her. Igbo was to be banished into the forest for the rest of her life. The